things. Okay, I'll try and call out a few more names if I get a chance going through the webinar. Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Sarah Philpott. I'll be presenting this webinar today. I'm part of Team IELTS, and 3 other team members will be helping me, supporting me, and indeed helping you and supporting you as we go through this webinar. So today we have Daniela de Mambro, who's joining us from Scotland, Aidan Thorne, who's joining us from Wales, and Mariana Petrovic, who is joining us from Croatia. Other members of Team IELTS are on special missions overseas and can't join us today. Okay, so let's get on. So as you can see from the title slide, we are going to be looking at IELTS Academic Writing Task 1, and we're going to be focusing on processes and maps. Hi, Chandan. So let's first of all, I mean, you're such an international group. It's just wonderful to see all these names, all these countries. But let's try and find out a little bit more about you before we actually start. So can we have poll question number 1, please? Okay, if you can see the poll on your device, please answer it there. If not, just write your answer in the chat box. So have you taken the IELTS test already? Yes or no? Number 2, what score do you need? Again, not what score do you want, but what score do you need? And number 3, when are you going to take the test? Is it, very shortly, less than a month, or you haven't decided yet, or something in between? Tell us in the poll question. Andrew's saying still have 1.5 months. Time goes so fast. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Josephine is saying she hasn't taken the test but needs an 8 to 9. Wow, it's high score. Well done for you. You must be going for a very serious course for that. I'm going to give it a little bit longer because we're a nice big group. Hi, Kusum. Nardos is saying taking the IELTS next week. Very, very best of luck, Nardos. And Shaddai, good luck. You're taking yours in a month and a half. Okay, can we have the results, please? Okay, so 82% of you haven't taken the test. 18% of you have. I presume that the 18% you need a slightly higher score in either one of these skills or perhaps overall. We'll see. Let's hope this can help. This webinar will help. And as is very usual for these webinars, people need generally between a 6 and an 8, with some needing lower, some needing high. There should be something in the webinar for everybody, I hope. And most of you are taking the webinar in the next 3 months, or some of you are taking it in less than a month. Okay, so let's see if we can help you all with a little bit at least. Can we have the next poll question, please? Okay, well, what we'd like you to tell us is whether you've been with us before or whether this is the first time. I have actually noticed a lot of names that I recognize. How did you hear about this webinar? Perhaps it was through, I don't know, LinkedIn or Facebook or British Council. And then lastly, about the test itself, which of the 4 skills do you find the most difficult? And meanwhile, I'll say Jazz is joining us from Australia. Okay, Momin, you got your test on the 6th of April, so you got about 3 weeks. Okay, lots of time. That's enough time to do lots of good preparation. Nadas, you're taking the test next week. The very, very best of luck. Just give you a little bit longer. Okay, and can we have the results, please? Okay, so 65% of you have been with us before, welcome back and thank you for staying with us. For the 35%, the third, for whom it's the first webinar, thank you very much for taking your time today to join us. I hope it proves very useful and I hope we'll see you next Thursday as well. Most of you, well, yeah, 55% of you heard about us through the British Council website, 24% through an email, but quite a lot on Facebook and Instagram as well. And of which of the skills you find the most difficult, well, fascinating. It's the same answers I had earlier. Most of you, 43% of you find writing the most difficult. That's very, very normal and usual. Okay, so let's hope that this writing webinar, Writing Task 1 webinar, will help you at least a little bit. So Elizabeth, don't worry that you're doing academic, you're doing general. Why not stay with us? Because you'll learn some vocabulary, I hope, perhaps a little bit of grammar, and you'll have a chance to listen to English for an hour. And that's always a good thing to do. So do stay with us, even if you're going to be doing the general training. Okay, so let's see what we're going to be doing today. Good, I'm glad you decided to stay, Elizabeth. Excellent. Okay, so 60 minutes or an hour, but that includes time for your questions. Please use the chat box to respond to me. Okay, the icon looks like that. I'm going to be asking you lots of questions. I'm going to be giving you lots of work to do as we go through this webinar. So please answer in the chat box. Okay, I'm afraid you can't see what other people write in the chat box. I can see it, and the team else can see it, and we will respond to it, but you can't see each other's comments. And that's because Zoom, such a large group, Zoom can crash if we open it up to everybody. Hi, Shuku, hope you're well. If you've got some more general questions, please put those in the Q&A. Okay, and as we're going through the webinar, Daniela, Mariana, and Aidan will be answering your questions, but also, you know, just leaving me a few popular questions for the very end of the webinar. It won't be possible, obviously, with a very big group to answer everyone's questions. So please, if you see a question that's similar to yours, please like it, and we'll definitely try and answer the most popular questions. My name is Sarah Philpott. Okay. As you probably heard, the webinar is being recorded, and Zoom will send you a link to the recording so that you can watch it again in your own time. I'm afraid we don't know what's happening around the world, as I'm sure you understand. But if you have any questions about your test booking, you'll have to contact your local British Council test centre. Okay. Finally, you know, we say this because data protection is very important, and don't share phone numbers or any personal information. And of course, be courteous at all times. Okay, as you always are. I don't think we've ever had to exclude somebody. Okay, good. So are we ready to get started? Tell me in the chat box. Are you ready to go? Everyone is saying yes. Ammo, Claudia, Beth, Kathy. Yeah, it looks like you're all pretty ready. Let's go, Oliver. Oliver is saying, okay, and Nefeli. Excellent. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to start off with, so half the webinar is going to be on process diagrams. So we're going to look at a model. We're going to look at the grammar and vocabulary that you need to write a good report about a process diagram. We're going to look at the linking devices that you need also for describing processes. And then for the maps, again, we're going to look at a model. Then we're going to look at how you can plan for writing a report about maps, a very important stage in writing your report about 2 maps. Then again, we'll look at the grammar and vocabulary that you'll need for that. And we'll finish off with your questions and hopefully my answers. And we'll look at some resources that you can use to help you prepare for the test. Okay, so let's just start with looking at a very simple model for describing process diagrams. Excuse me. So we have an introduction, and in the introduction, we say what the diagram is. And in the same paragraph, the introduction, we say what the overview is. Okay, we'll look at this in detail in a little bit. But just to say that this is what you put into every single academic writing task 1 answer. An introduction of 2 parts, what the diagram is, and the overview. That's then followed by a body paragraph, or possibly body paragraphs, depending on the diagram. And in that, you choose the most important parts of the process to support your overview. And of course, you then describe them. Okay. If there is time, so conclusion, can I make this absolutely crystal clear? You do not have to write a conclusion for academic writing task 1. Okay, you don't have to. You don't get any extra points for writing a conclusion, but you don't lose any points if you don't write a conclusion. So only write one if you really have the time, or perhaps your report is a little bit short and you're worried about the 150 words. If you do write a conclusion, the only thing you should put is a rephrasing of the overview. Nothing more, nothing less. Okay. Right. Okay, let's get stuck right in then. Let's have a look at a sample question. Okay, so just have a look at this, because this is the one we're going to work on. Don't worry, Hannah, about being late. You can watch the beginning when you get the link. Okay, so we've got a process which is about brick manufacturing. And the diagram below shows a process by which bricks are manufactured for the building industry. Okay, so this is the question we will work on. So let's go into the first step of this process, which is writing the introduction. Okay, now as we said earlier, the introduction has 2 parts. And the first part is what? Tell me in the chat box, please. What's the first part of the introduction? Yes, Antran, yes, exactly. It's what the diagram is. Yes, Andrew, paraphrasing, Levon, paraphrasing, Devika, absolutely. Saying what the diagram is, Nefeli, exactly. So a rephrasing or a paraphrasing of the question itself, absolutely. And then, what's the second part? Yeah, Marwa's got there already. Yes, Michael, paraphrasing plus the overview. Yes, Bernadette. Yes, Pratik, etc. And more. Perfect. Okay, so that's what the introduction is. It's a couple of sentences, a rephrasing of the question and an overview. But important things, yes, Sadia, yes, Beth, overview. But what is the overview in a process diagram? Yay, Bernadette, that was quick. Bernadette saying the number of steps. Brilliant. Okay. Michael is saying total number of steps. Okay, brilliant. No, Chanda, I advise you very, very strongly not to write the overview at last. You must have an overview, put it in right at the beginning. Okay, so yes, as somebody, a lot of you have said, and Nagan, for example, and others, the number of steps or stages in the process. Okay, and to come back to, was it Chantal's, where was it? Chantal's question, Chanda's question. Let's just have a look at this. Tell me, how important is the overview? You tell me. Very Levon is saying, Andrew's saying crucial. Michael's saying it's part of task achievement. Claudia's saying a lot. Shusha's saying it's extremely important. Absolutely. It's terribly, terribly important. Okay, and the reason why is for, I think it was Michael, wasn't it? For task achievement, yeah, Michael Obeso said, task achievement. To get a band 7 or more, which many of you have said that that's what you want, or sorry, what you need for your balance score. In order to achieve that, then you have to present a clear overview with the main trend stages or differences identified, okay? So it's very important that you write a clear overview, and the place for that overview is in your introduction. Not at the end, in your introduction, so it's quite clear and logical. And without it, yes, Andrew, exactly. Without it, your band score won't be higher than 6 for task achievement. And Frederick's also saying something very interesting and useful. The overview guides your writing. Absolutely. Well done. Okay, so we've got to that. We know that our introduction is 2 parts. So let's have a look at the first part, and that is writing the first sentence of the introduction, which, as we said, is that paraphrasing. So the actual essay title is "The diagram below shows the process by which bricks are manufactured for the building industry." All well and good. Okay, tell me in the chat box, please, what could we use instead of, let's start with the first one. What could we say instead of diagram? Please put your answers in the chat box because I can't see Q&A. Illustration, picture, model, perhaps? The graphic, yep. Process diagram, yep. Okay, very good, excellent. What about shows? What verb could we use? We've got depicts, and Tran is saying illustrates, Frederick's saying illustrates, depicts, Grace, I think that was, highlights. Yeah, oh, you've got some lovely, lovely alternatives, some good paraphrasing for shows. This looks like a complicated phrase, but it can be rephrased very, very simply. Process by which? What could we write instead of process by which? It could be the steps, yep, absolutely. Shows the way, some of you are saying, yep. Okay, procedure, very good, yeah. Very good, yeah. You've definitely got the right idea. Any of these things that you're telling me, Ashish and Mohammed and stuff like that, it would be. And how? Okay, yes, and again. Manufactured, use of it saying how it's made, produced, created, made, I think, or produced, yeah. And lastly, instead of building, what can we say instead of building industry? Yes, Michael, construction, Untran, Hannah, very good. Bernadette, Shusha, okay, excellent. Okay, you've basically said exactly what I said. Okay, so we've got the process diagram. That just shows the examiner that we know the precise vocabulary. It's not just a diagram, it's a process diagram, and we know that, and we're showing the examiner we know that. Instead of shows, we've got illustrates, and the process by which, we've got how. Manufactured becomes made, and the building industry becomes the construction industry. So you've got you all came up with those ideas. And that's the first sentence of your introduction. Now, the second sentence of your introduction is a very, 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 very important overview. And we looked at the fact that the overview for a process diagram is the number of steps in the process. So let's have a look at our sample question again. Okay, and here's a poll question. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is have a look at that diagram and tell me how many steps there are in this process, and that'll be the overview. Okay, so I'll give you a little bit of time to really look at that diagram and then tell me in the poll question how many steps there are. Look at the diagram carefully. If you can't see the actual poll question or you can't access it, please put your answer in the chat box. Alisa is saying 6, Claudia 7, even 9, Luella 8. Now don't worry if you can't see the poll, Edsel, just tell me here how many steps you think there are in the process. Lots of you are saying 7, some 8, some 6, some 9. Okay, let's give you a little bit longer to answer in the actual poll question. No, it's not asking you about the manufacturing process. It's asking you about the whole process from beginning to end. Okay, and let's have the result, please. Okay, so 52% are saying 7. Pawinuk is saying, I think 10. Emily is saying 8 maybe. So over half of you think it's 7, 15% think it's 8. That's interesting. And nobody's really right or wrong, but I'm going to show you how many steps I think there are. Okay, so I think that's the first one, the digging of the clay. And the next one is this process where it gets shaken through a metal grid. Then for me, adding the sand and water is another separate step. Okay, separate step. Okay, so that's 3. 4 is making the bricks into the correct shape. For me, 5 is when that is then dried in the oven. And then 6 is when it's heated up, when they're basically baked, when they're cooked. And for me, 7 is because this third part here is actually cooling. So it's hot, very hot, and then it's allowed to cool. Yes, Aparupa, I will explain why nobody is really right or wrong. Could there be multiple answers? Yes, absolutely, and I'll explain why in a minute. And then for me, packaging and then delivery. So I make it 9. Okay, but perhaps some of you put this process all together. So you had 5, 6, 7, 8. Perhaps some of you put these two processes together. That's also okay. What is important is the next step. So let's just stick with my 9. Okay, I've said 9. And that's what I'm going to make into my overview. If you said 7, that's fine. You put that into your overview. Okay, so for me, it is clear from this diagram that there are 9 main steps in the process. And what have I put in red? What's in red? Tell me in the chat box. Yes, thank you, Bernadette. The first and last steps, absolutely. That just builds out the introduction, makes it look nice and solid. Okay, so going back at Aparupa's question, which is a very good question, how important is the number of steps you put in the overview? Well, in some ways, it's very important. And this is the reason why. For coherence and cohesion, it's one of the ways your essay is assessed. For band 7, it says information and ideas are logically organized and there is progression. Okay, so logically organized, that means if you've said 9 steps in your introduction, in your overview, you must write about 9 steps in your body. If you said there were 7 steps, that's fine, as long as you only write about 7 steps in the body paragraph. That's what makes it logical. It'd be totally illogical if I said there were 9 steps and then wrote about 7 or wrote about 10. Okay, so you need to make sure that whatever you put in your overview, you support it logically. We need it logically supported in the body paragraph. Shusha, you can say there are 7 if you combine some of those things together. We'll have a look in a bit. Okay, so here's my model answer. I'm just going to give you a minute to read it, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. Yes, Aparupa, unless it's absolutely clear, sometimes it's not, you can't say definitely there are 9 steps. You could make it 8, you could even make it 7. So it's saying how many steps you think you can see, and explaining each step is what is vital, because that is what is logical. Okay, a minute or so to read this. Yes, Shusha, you need to show logic. Say there are 7, write about 7. Okay, let's have a look, and I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay, so tell me, please, what are the words and phrases in blue? Yes, the steps and their verbs. Can you tell me a bit more about the verbs? Yes, Michael, thank you. They're in the passive voice. Yes, Dilukshi, yes, exactly. Very good. So they are the verbs of what's happening. They are the verbs telling us what the stages were. Are they in the past passive or the present passive? Be careful. It is put, are added, is dug, are put, are called, are packaged. Yeah, absolutely. It's a present passive, does it? Good. And what about the words and phrases in red? Yes, Antran, cohesive devices. What are they? Yeah, you're all getting that perfectly well. What type of linking words are they, though? What are they telling us? Yes, who's saying that? Michael and Aparupa, yes, thank you. From one step to the next, Yaroslav Luella is saying sequence. Exactly. They're showing the sequence of events. Brilliant. Okay. So when you're writing your reports, okay. If you're writing your report, please remember you have to use the passive voice, and you have to add sequential linkers. Okay, even more, there's no negative marking in IELTS. This model answer is 130. but it's also got 30 words of introduction. So the total is 160 words. So that's absolutely fine. Okay, you notice I've actually put numbers into this essay. Please don't do that in your reports. I'm just doing that to show you that my introduction said 9 steps, and I have written precisely and exactly about 9 steps in my body paragraph. And I'm just putting numbers in so that you can see that. And then you can also see that for each of those stages, I have used a sequential linker. Okay, good. So let's have a look then at some of the grammar and vocabulary that you need. Okay, that's right, Mahira, you're now in the right place. Okay. So Anara, if you write it only in 7 or 8 steps, that's fine, as long as that's what you've put in your overview. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the actual grammar of this. Remember, please put all your answers in the chat box because I can't see the Q&A. So how do we actually make the passive voice? Tell me in the chat box. How can we form the passive voice present? Be careful, Antran, BMP too? I don't think so. Verb to be plus past participle, absolutely, or the third part of the verb, whichever, whatever you call it. So is or are generally, and the past participle. So is and made, and it's the present passive that you will nearly always need for process diagrams. Occasionally you might get an ancient process, in which case you would need to use the past passive, which is was, were, and the past participle. But I haven't seen a question about a past process for years and years and years and years. So present passive is what you need. Okay, are you ready for a little test? Can I give you a test? Okay, great. Thanks, Emily, Mikhailo, and Yulia. Thank you, Michael, Maniza. Excellent. Okay, so on a piece of paper, please, can you write the numbers 1 to 10? Numbers 1 to 10. Great. Okay. On a piece of paper, Hugh. Okay. Right. And on your piece of paper, please don't put anything in chat at the moment. I want you to write the third part, the past participle of these 10 irregular verbs. So write them down on a piece of paper first, and then I will ask you for them in chat. But on paper first. No, Mahira, not in the chat yet, please. Just wait. Do all 10, and then I will ask you for your answers in about 30 seconds, okay? So quickly write down the past participle of these 10 verbs. Thanks, Mahira. I'll give you 30 seconds. Yusuf, please don't write in the chat box yet. I'll ask you in a minute to write in chat, but not now, please. Tell me in the chat box once you've done all 10. Just tell me you've finished in chat box when you've finished. Emily's saying done. Alfonso's done. Done. Okay, great. All right. So let's go through them this time together. Okay. Number 1, dig. What is the past participle of dig? Yeah, you're all very good at this sort of stuff. Yeah, it's dug. What about number 2? Be careful, some of you are saying put it. No, it's irregular and it's just put. And for number 3? Yes, okay, cut. What about dry? Be careful with the spelling here. Yeah, very good. You've got that. Take. Again, be careful. It's take, took, taken. Yeah, be careful, Feluke. It's the third word. It's the third part that we're looking for. What about send? That's all right. We all forget things. Yeah, everyone's getting that. Send. Freeze. Yeah, I think everybody's saying the right thing. Frozen. The next one, shake. Not shook. Remember, it's the third part we're looking for. So that's shaken. Break. I think a lot of you have got that. Yeah, brilliant, Andrew. Yes, correct. Broken. And this last one, what about this? Grinded. No, it's not. It's, as many of you are saying ground. Okay, so these 10 irregular verbs are sort of what we call generic verbs. So they're not for one specific process, but these are the sort of verbs that are used in lots and lots and lots of different manufacturing processes. So it's really good to know them, and it's particularly good to know the third part and past participle so that you can use these in the passive form. Okay, tell me in the chat what you got out of 10. How many did you get out of 10? Oh, very high scoring. Well done. Okay, a lot of you got 8, 9, and 10. Brilliant. If you got a lower mark, don't worry, you can practice again once you get the link to this. Okay, and just to finish off this section then, bear in mind that linking ideas, you're going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, so you need these sequential linkers. Can you remember any of the sequential linkers that I used in my body paragraph? Can you tell me in the chat? Yeah, Andrew, firstly. Okay, Beth saying firstly, Andrew saying secondly, first, after that, afterwards. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, excellent. You remember most of them, I think. So we got firstly, afterwards, then, lastly, secondly, after that, next, finally. These are the sorts of words that you'll need to use to link one step, one stage with the next. Phew. Okay, we're about halfway through, so let's move over to maps and plans. I will summarize the work we've done on process diagrams at the end of this webinar. Okay, so what happens usually is that you get 2 maps or 2 plans to compare. I don't think I've seen just one map for ever, really. So it's always going to be 2 maps or plans. So the things you have to think about are, first of all, look at what time period the maps and plans are about, and therefore what tenses you're going to actually use, which tenses would be appropriate. And you've got to think about the appropriate language as well. So you're going to make comparisons, you're going to contrast things. Yes, Hannah, you're going to describe changes, absolutely. And you're going to need that sort of that vocabulary that we use to describe places, perhaps developed or modernized or industrialized, those sorts of things. And again, as with the process diagrams, you'll still need to think about linking devices, but perhaps here there'll be devices for making comparisons like whereas and things like that. Okay, and just like process diagrams, the model is very, very similar. Okay, so you say what the maps are and what dates are given so that we know the time period we're talking about and what tenses, and we give the overview. Okay, so that's the rephrasing and the overview. Okay, then as before, it's the body paragraph or possibly body paragraphs. And that you choose the biggest changes that support your overview and then describe the changes. So this sort of model fits nearly every type of diagram. And again, only if there's time or only if you're a few words short of 150, rephrase the overview as conclusion. Okay, so let's look at a map. Okay, so this is the maps below show the town of Bilston in 1999 and as it is today. Okay. Right, so let's have a look at what we can say about it. What's in the overview? Tell me what's in the overview of a two-map diagram. We're just going to we're just going to explain the overview right now. Tell me in the chat box if you know what Michael is saying. The major changes that happened. Absolutely, that's spot on, Michael. Okay, so for a two-map question, the overview should state the main or the most important or the biggest changes between the two maps. And you should always try and express these in more general language. We're looking for the overview, the big picture. We're not looking for the nitty-gritty. We're not looking for the details. So we'll use words like modernized, urbanized, transformed, industrialized, etc. Okay. Okay, Shusha, I think the information is different everywhere. For academic writing task 1, please put your overview in the introduction, because that sets what you're going to write about. If you've got time, you can repeat it in the introduction. And the same in the writing task 2, you put your opinion in the introductory paragraph and then repeat it in the conclusion. Please do not leave the overview or your opinion to the final part. Okay, please put them in the introduction. Okay. So once you put in the biggest change in your overview, you then can describe these in the body paragraph. And now you'll be using new things. You'll be using specific vocabulary and not this more generalized vocabulary. So you'll be talking about new things being built or constructed or established or opened. And you'll be talking about removal of things that are chopped down or cleared or demolished. Sujit, no, don't have a separate paragraph, one paragraph. The paragraph is the introduction, and that is a rephrasing plus the overview, okay? Just one paragraph for the introduction. All right, so let's have a look at it, at the map again. Okay, now what I suggest to my students is that they do some planning for map questions, because it's very easy to keep looking at maps and you write a sentence or two sentences, then you go back to the maps and you write another sentence, but that becomes very illogical. You need to think about, you need to plan what you're going to write. So what I tell my students to do is to write a grid. Draw a grid like this, and you can do this in the test. You can do it on the test paper if you're doing the test on paper, and you do it on scrap paper if you're doing the test on computer. So just do this. So can you, on a piece of paper, just draw out this grid on a piece of scrap paper? Yes, Karen, absolutely. You may well need to use words like north, south, to the east, to the west, whatever. Okay, have you all drawn out the grid? Okay, thanks, Michael. Okay, so we're going to go back to the maps, and I want you to, in your planning frame, I want you to write down what's been added, what's been taken away, what's got bigger or increased, and any other points if you think there's anything else that's important. Okay, so I'm going to give you 30 seconds to do your planning for your essay. Hi, Bilatu, Abdullah, you're in the right place now. 15 more seconds to write in your planning grid. And okay, let's see what you've got. So, excuse me, what's been added? Tell me in the chat box. Roads, yep, houses, golf course, car parks, yeah, okay. Yep. So a golf course, a camping site, roads, and car parks. Brilliant. Okay, what's got bigger and what's increased? Yes, right, exactly. The hotel's got bigger and it's got a restaurant, absolutely. Yes, live on. Exactly. There are more shops and Nara is saying housing as well. Yeah. So there was a hotel, there were shops, there were houses before, but all of those have got bigger. Exactly. Well done. And what's been taken away? Yeah, sadly. Yeah, absolutely. The woodlands have been taken away. And yes, who's saying, Michael Abeso is saying some housing was demolished as well as cutting away the woodlands. Was there any other points that you added? Any other different points? No, I didn't see anything different really. Okay, so good. So first question for you. You've got this written down, so you can see, what's the major changes that have happened to Bilston. So, how can we generalize this? We don't want to use detailed vocabulary. We want to use general vocabulary. Sumawiya is saying modernize. Yep. Ruvaida is saying urbanize as well. Modernize Tayas. Azarika, modernized. Michael is saying the overall change is it's been transformed. Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant, everybody. You're coming up absolutely with the right type of vocabulary for your overview. And also, not only does this plan give you a clear picture, if you like, of what vocabulary you need to use for your overview, but it also gives you a planning grid for how you're going to write your essay. So if you're using words like urbanize and modernize, you're going to start with what's been added probably because that's the biggest changes as well, and then compare that with what was there before. So this gives you the overview and this gives you a plan for writing your actual report. Okay. And equally, very importantly, you need to think about your tenses. So the maps are about Bilston in 1990 and today. So tell me in the chat box, please, what tenses are you going to use? Yes, Bernadette, but be more precise, please. And then more, be more precise. Simple present, yes, Anara, exactly. What else? Yes, Cindy, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Cindy is saying the present perfect, absolutely. So we're going to use the simple past to describe Bilston in 1990. We're going to use the present simple to describe Bilston as it is today. And we're going to use the present perfect to describe, yes, exactly, Yusuf, since. We're going to use it present perfect to describe the changes between 1999 and today, since 1990, from 1990 until today. Okay, excellent. Right, and so here we go with the model introduction. So we've done exactly the same thing. We've said two maps just to show that we've, really looked at it. We've put illustrate instead of show, what the town was like, and instead of as it is today, how it is currently. And I've used exactly the same words that you were giving me. It's been urbanized and modernized. Excellent. Okay, so let's have a look at a model answer. Okay, again, I'm going to give you let's say, a minute to read through this, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay, let's have a look. So there's our introduction with our rephrasing, followed by our overview. We've got the body paragraph, looking at how things have got an increased or new, and then describing how those things have been removed as well. And a short conclusion, which just repeats the overview. So let me ask you some questions about this. So tell me, please, in the chat box, what tense are the verbs in blue in? Yes, Alfonso, Anam, yeah, Levon, Rita, absolutely, Emil, and Mol. Yeah, they're in the simple present simple, because they're describing what is there currently. Okay, what about the verbs in green? Yes, present perfect, absolutely. You're all getting that, but a little bit more. Most of them are present perfect. What? Yes, somebody's just given me the right answer. Let me see if I can find them. Frederick, absolutely. Has been transformed, has been enlarged, have been constructed, has been expanded. That's all present perfect passive. Yes, okay, Revede. I mean, Bilson has undergone, that's just present perfect. But most of the others are present perfect passive. Yeah. What about purple? Yes, Andrew, past simple, passive. Yeah, was quite small, it's just past, simple past, was demolished, is obviously in the past passive. Okay, excellent. One last question for you. Here's my introduction and here is my conclusion. Okay, now remember I told you that if you do write a conclusion, perhaps because your essay or report is a little bit short or because you've got the time and you want to, that's fine. You should only really repeat what you've said in the introduction, but you want to try and change the language a bit. So what's the connection between the words in red and the words in yellow in my introduction and in my conclusion? Tell me. Yes, Bernadette, synonyms, rephrasing, absolutely. Yes, Andrew paraphrased, exactly. So in my introduction, I said urbanized, but I didn't want to repeat that in my conclusion. So I've said more densely populated, which is like urbanized. And modernized, yes, okay, but I've shown that I can use this word, this word family, and transform that into an adjective. Okay. Yes, Ariana, synonyms and word formation, absolutely right. Thank you. Good. Okay, so let's very quickly summarize what we've looked at today. So process diagrams, overview, stating a number of steps in the introduction, in the introduction, in the introduction, not at the end. Make sure to be logical, that your body paragraph describes the same number of steps, no more, no less. Doesn't matter whether you have 8 or 9, as long as you can describe that 8 or describe those 9, that's absolutely fine. Use the passive voice where appropriate, and of course, link with those sequential linkers. Okay, and for 2 map questions. Okay, so the overview in the introduction, stating the biggest changes and put it in the introduction. Excellent. And then make sure that your body paragraph describes those changes logically. So the biggest change to the smallest, what's been added, what's been lost. And remember, use a planning grid to do this. It makes it so much easier. It makes it so much quicker. And it also means you don't forget anything in the rush of being in a test. So do use that grid. Make sure you look at the dates on the 2 maps and you then use the appropriate tenses. If necessary, please just write down on the test paper what tenses you're going to use, just to remind yourself of which tenses you must use. And of course, make comparisons, because that's what it says in the instructions. Pablo, sorry, I can't go back. I don't have enough time. But remember that you will be able to look at all of these slides in your own time when you get the recording. Okay, so I'm going to go over and look at some questions. While I'm doing that, please could you tell us in the chat box what you found useful or what you've enjoyed in this webinar, because that is helpful when we prepare these webinars. Okay, and I'll also put up what else is happening in March. So we've got writing task 2 next week, problem solution essays, and then at the end of March, we've got narrative tenses for speaking. So please join us for those. Okay, and I've got a couple of minutes to answer some of your questions. And some good questions. Livon is saying, do maps include only one body paragraph? It's a very good question. It's a very difficult question to answer, Livon. Just generally speaking, yes, one body paragraph is absolutely fine, because you're just saying what changes have happened. If there's a type of change which is very different, you can have a small second body paragraph, but generally speaking, one body paragraph is more than adequate. Okay. And Jerry-Ann, what a good question. Jerry-Ann May is asking, is it okay to exceed the word limit? To be honest, Jerry-Ann, in order to write a really good report, you have to exceed the word limit. I mean, I think 170, 180 words would be enough words to provide a very good answer. Remember, 150 is the minimum. There is no maximum. You must not write fewer than 150 words. If you write fewer than 150 words, it probably means that you haven't answered the question thoroughly. So at least 150 words, okay? And if you're doing 170, 180, even 190, that's probably even better. Should we put the overview in the same paragraph of the introduction? Yes, 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 Angela. Absolutely. The introduction has 2 sentences or 2 parts. It has the rephrasing and it has the overview in the same paragraph. Put them together. They belong together. Like Romeo and Juliet. Put them in the introductory paragraph together. No, Jae-young, don't apologise. No, you don't need a conclusion for mapping questions. No, I wrote one because I had the time, okay? But please don't bother. It's just there. If you've got the time, if you want to, you can write one. But for none of the academic writing task 1s, for none of them, a conclusion is needed. So don't waste your time writing a conclusion, is my general advice. One more question, and then I'll go through some of the resources. Okay. Hannah, I mean, sometimes the maps, if they're a map perhaps of, an island or something like that, then they'll have a little indication, a little arrow saying north, south, east, west. And if you're describing one of the maps, you might say something like they built luxury hotels in the north of the island. So sometimes you might have to use north, south, east, west to describe the location of where things are on a map. I hope that's helped. Okay, I'm afraid I'm going to have to go to resources. So please go to takeielts.org, which is our mothership. It's where everything we have is. No, everything you need is there. Sport materials, free practice tests. So Mariana, who is the queen of the links, is putting those links into the chat box so you can click straight on them. Please do join our IELTS official Facebook page. And if I didn't answer your question, you can ask our colleagues, more IELTS experts, your questions there. You can have a free familiarization of the on-computer test. If you're thinking about doing the test on computer, then why not try out and see if you feel comfortable with it. And again, Mariana is putting the links into the chat box. If you go to Take IELTS, you can join IELTS Ready as a member. That's free with lots of material there for you. If you've registered to do the IELTS test with the British Council, then you can become a member of IELTS Ready Premium, which gives you lots and lots and lots of more materials to prepare, including lots and lots of practice tests. So do look at that. That's free. IELTS Ready Member is completely free to you, and IELTS Ready Premium is if you're registered to take the test with the British Council. You can download the IELTS Prep app immediately if you want to do that with free practice tests, etc., including 4 more new tests with model answers that you can buy for a very small sum. For books, please do look at the official IELTS practice materials and Cambridge top tips for general training and academic. And if you think you need to improve your sort of more general English, please do go to Learn English British Council. You can do a little test to work out what your level is. That's completely free. And then you can try working on your vocabulary, on your reading, on your listening, on your writing, etc., and your grammar. So please do that. Sorry, that was a bit of a rush. Thank you so much for joining us this Thursday. Stay well, stay safe. I hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.